this story for today for Stephen. I've not seen a name sign for him, so let's just sign Stephen for today. Stephen, he was a worker for the gospel. So Stephen, read this. There's a whole 2 chapters, so there's a lot in there. But for yourself, realize it starts off because as they were serving and they were growing, they needed more help. Some of the people, they weren't helping enough. And so they picked more disciples to ask to help. And one of those men was named Stephen. And they called them back then, they called them deacons. They served in the church. Well, he was one that it says people knew he was God's servant. He spoke with authority, with power. Well, this got him in trouble with the Jewish leaders. And they arrested and they hauled him up. Why are you doing these things? And if you want to summarize it down, what happened is that Stephen gave this awesome, beautiful sermon. If you read this in there, you will read these 2 chapters, how he summarizes from the Old Testament. Abraham left home, he traveled, and how God worked through all of the Old Testament people, and he led them each step of the way. Awesome summary. And then he says, you are the ones who killed Jesus. You are the ones who are stiff-necked. You are stiff-necked. You are hard-hearted. And you refuse to listen to God's word. And they did not like that. And finally, when Stephen looked up to heaven, I saw heaven opened up and the Son of Man, Jesus, coming up. And because Stephen was calling Jesus God. And so they took him, they led him outside, and they stoned him to death. But even when he was close to die, all right, and you read this at the end of chapter 7, it says, what did he do? He looked up and he said, do not hold their sins against them, which means what? Forgive them. Does that sound like someone else, Father, forgive them. They know what they're doing. And then he looked up to heaven and he said, Lord, receive my spirit. And he died. That is an awesome example of faith. And when you read these 2 chapters, I summarized them really briefly, but read them. See what Stephen proclaimed about the history of God's word. This also is 1 chapter of summaries of God working through history. But read the end, how Stephen stayed faithful to death. And I love that. Father, forgive them, and you take me home. You and I get to look forward to that same thing someday. Lord, forgive all the people who sin against us. Forgive them and take us home someday. I pray God will bless you as you study his word.